back in. It is the WalterFootball.com Odd Shopper Combo. Walt from Walter Football's in the house. I'm Eitan. We appreciate you rolling with us. We don't ask much on Odd Shopper. Thumbs up, subscribe. We have a ton to tell you about what's happening at WalterFootball.com. It is the final week 18, but the 17th game for the NFL squads around the league. And Walt, we have a lot from playoffs to drama to tragic to everything that's happened last week wrapped up in one. So eager to see how you see this schedule coming up. 2-3 last week, can't go 5-0 every week. So we kind of gloss over that, but you've been on fire for the season.
Yeah, it's a big week coming up for us here. I think I'm tied for 85th in the contest, so pretty much close to the money. And in the mini contest, I'm tied for second. So with a good week, I'll maybe take first. So looking forward to it. And I've been thinking about these games all week. Like, it's all I've been thinking about. So, yeah, looking forward to this card.
All right, 2 games on Saturday. You have both of them. Let's start in chronological order.
Yeah, so what I like to do is keep tabs on how I do with each team every year. And there are some teams I can't read. I'll admit it, like the Commanders. I think I'm like 4-11-1 in their games this year. But with the Chiefs, I'm 14-2 against the spread. And it's not like rocket science here. I just fade them every week. It's because they don't cover these high spreads. They just can't put together a full game. And look at the results. I mean, they almost lost to the Broncos twice. They beat the Raiders at home by 1. They went to overtime against the Titans and Malik Willis. This team just doesn't cover high spreads, and this is another high spread. I don't see why the Chiefs will suddenly win by double digits against the Raiders, who were very competitive last week. I thought there was a chance that they would just quit after Derek Carr left, but with Jarrett Stidham, he would look better than Derek Carr somehow. They really tried hard, and this I think this could be their Super Bowl. So I think the Raiders fight the Chiefs hard, and I've been asking this to everyone, and no one has gotten the right answer. So I'm curious if you can get it.
Don't count on me then. If you're asking smart people and they're not getting it, don't count on me, man.
Well, how many games have the Raiders lost by more than 7 this year? How many do you think?
So they've played 16 games. And see, I know to never lay points on the road with Carr and McDaniels and combine that. So I'm going to say of the 16 games, they've lost 11 by less than a touchdown.
Okay.
Total guess.
Yeah. Well, they've only lost by 7 or more once this year, which is kind of crazy.
Okay.
All their games have been close. The only game they lost by more than 7 was that Saints game where the third of their team had the flu. Yeah. And think about how they've done against teams currently in the playoffs this year. They lost to the Chargers by 5. They lost to the Chiefs by 1. They lost to the Jaguars by 7. That was the week after the flu game, so they still might have had it. They beat the Seahawks by 6. They beat the Chargers in a revenge game by 7. They beat the Patriots by 6, and they lost to the 49ers by 3. Those are all their games against the current playoff teams. So, again, I don't see why they would suddenly lose by double digits. I love the Raiders plus 9.5.
Love that. You mentioned the way in which they've been able to cover these, especially these losing by less than 7 right there in front of you. Beautiful way to start. We have another game on Saturday that we're going to get to. Curious to see how you look at this, especially with the strategy from both coaches that were completely opposite last week. But WalterFootball.com, you guys are doing a ton of things. We're getting closer, Walt, right? And you've been pumping this because it's one of many things that we want to highlight at WalterFootball.com, but we keep getting closer to the draft. You guys are keep updating the mock drafts.
Sit on the thing. It's like coming into these shows, like the big variable is whether or not you know
It's Thursday.
I believe it's Thursday. Thursday the 5th. I only know that because I looked at the day and time before because I wanted to see when The Last of Us was coming out on HBO. Oh, you actually want to start the show, Mike? All right. What's happening, Stokastic basketball fans? Welcome to the No House Advantage NBA strategy show for, as we just established behind the scenes, Thursday, January 5th. We figured we'd invite all you guys in on the conversation at this point, and I'm here with my pal Gundacker. We're going to break down the entire NBA slate. We don't have all kinds of crazy promos or anything like that to read. We're brought to you by our pals at No House Advantage, the slate that we're going to be talking about. As you guys probably know by now, they've got two different ways you can play over there. They've got a $100 deposit match bonus if you follow through our links from Stokastic. Over at Stokastic, we've got free projections, free lineups for this site. So all sorts of good things going on with our pals at NHA. But otherwise, no promos to read. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe, and let's talk to Gun. Gun, how's your day going? What do you think of this slate, diving into it, as I'm sure you've been up for probably about an hour?
You give me a lot of credit there. I'm taking a look at tonight's news right now. Looks like a manageable 4-gamer. Last night was kind of the opposite end, just a whole lot of games and a lot more news to track, which makes No House Advantage a little easier, I guess you could say. So maybe a little bit more challenging and maybe a little bit more rewarding to be unique or contrarian with some selections tonight. But the cards were being dealt with, and we all got to play from the same deck.
Yeah. Last night got a little bit out of hand. I got myself a little bit upside down on the Philly centers. I kind of decided, despite the news of the starting lineup, I just said, hey, like if I go half and half of that distribution that I was planning with Paul Reed and Trez Harrell, one of them was going to probably stumble into enough minutes. Trez kind of got there, but I was on the wrong side of it. I had too much Reed, and he obviously DNP'd and gave me a 0 across a lot of lineups. But we did pull through and managed to at least salvage some of it and pull it out of the fire. So it wasn't a total disaster. But yeah, nice, friendly little 4-gamer tonight. One thing that stood out, we've got some nice totals in this one. 3 of the 4 games in the upward of 230, and the fourth one at 229.5. So some decent expectation of scoring. There's some fairly sizable spreads in the 6.5, 5.5 range, but no giant 10+ type of spread. So hopefully some competitive games. We do have some injury situations to deal with. One of the most noteworthy, and one that I think hits our board a little bit, is Paul George, currently questionable, and it seems like it's trending toward a DNP to me. They said he's going to travel with the team, was the way it was reported. So like anytime I hear travel with the team, I kind of feel like, all right, he's probably not going to play. They're not expecting him to play. It's the same hammy that was bothering him earlier in the season, and he missed a handful of games. So what's your read on Paul George? And then does that have a downstream impact for you on something like the over on Kawhi Leonard's points, which looked like it was a pretty strong pick on our overs board here?
Yeah, it feels like more often than not when Paul George or Kawhi have their name on the injury report, they're out. Obviously that's not gospel, but it certainly seems in the last 2 seasons that there's plenty of reason to brace ourselves for Paul George to not play this game. And then, yes, the immediate impact would be that Kawhi Leonard would benefit. These are 2 guys that probably both share between 27-30% usage when they're on the court. So you take one of those guys off, it can't help but help the other guy from the Department of Redundancy department. If we take off Paul George on the court this season, leave Kawhi on, Kawhi holds a 29.2% usage rate, 18.6% assist rate. So he's doing more shooting than passing. And then, of course, for fantasy, we're going to like him as well. So, yeah, I do think it benefits Kawhi. And then another boost for Kawhi lately is just kind of broke through any type of concern that we've been reserving all year about what kind of minutes he would play. We've seen him put in some decent days at the office. So yeah, it looks like it could be a Kawhi night. And from this far out, if I was getting like if I couldn't change anything in 30 minutes and make cards right now, I would probably make cards assuming Paul George was out.
Yeah, I think that's the approach that I would take as well. Is kind of it just tracks that George isn't going to go in this one. And I think our projection right now is still with Paul George playing. And it's what I like about it is we're at 83.8% on that over for the Kawhi Leonard points prop with George in. It's only a 15.5 line. Like you said, he's been trending upward in minutes. In his 28, now it's a 28.9 minutes per game average for the season. He's already averaging 17.3 points per game, just real life points. Per 36 cents, he's at 21.5, which is right where we've got him projected. We've got him projected to play 36 minutes tonight. In his last 7 straight games that he's appeared in, he's been upwards of 30 minutes. So yeah, trending back toward normal expectation of Kawhi minutes. So I like it already, even if George goes, but I don't think he's going to go. So I think we see that one, even potentially kick up a little bit higher. What about at the very top of the overs boards? Lauri Markkanen on the threes, 1.5 threes for Lauri Markkanen. We've got that as a 90%er. What do we think there?
Yeah, Lauri Markkanen is going to shoot a lot of threes. He's going to shoot the ball a lot, and it looks like sometimes you can expect half of his shot attempts from behind the arc. And we've been attacking Houston with offenses all year. Really, just a strong spot for any type of offense. But for the 3 ball, I'm in on it. I don't know if you saw the Lauri Markkanen almost buzzer beater to beat the Kings the other night. But he's been having a magical season in the eyes of Utah Jazz fans. The Houston Rockets allow 3-pointers made. Houston Rockets allow the most 3-pointers made per game in all of basketball, while also allowing the most 3-point attempts per game in basketball. So the way that they play defense certainly sets opponents up for shooting a lot of long balls, and I'd like Lauri Markkanen to be, if not the leader in 3-point shot volume, one of the top 2 for that team. So it looks really, really good between him and Clarkson.
Yeah, absolutely. You just got to like the spot a lot against this team. And just on the average, he's taking 7 a game, making 3 a game, shooting 42%. Like you said, just a blessed season for him so far. He's really everything he touches turns to gold kind of a season at this point, and helping make that trade look pretty good on the Utah end. And they're really, they've come out the other end of that, looking at least as solid as they were, if not, potentially a little bit better. So it's an interesting deal on both sides with Mitchell performing the way he is, and my Knicks not getting anything out of that deal. And they were the big rumored team that he was supposed to be going to. Some interesting features been going around about that since the 70-point game the other night around the industry. What about let's take a look at another one that I think is really interesting and seems kind of obvious, kind of one of those fat ones that they just leave on the table for us at No House in the versus the field contest. Franz Wagner, 13.5 points on the over. We've got it at 84.2%, and it feels, to use your phrase, a little bit more warm and fuzzy than that to me. I really like this one. What do you think on that one?
Yeah, he's putting in almost 20 points a game when he's out there. Orlando has had quite the carousel of who's actually playing tonight with suspensions and injuries. So, and he had last night off with an injury. So on a back-to-back, he's one of the fresher set of legs out there. Makes a lot of sense to look his way. It should be a positive game script for the Magic as home dogs against a strong Memphis Grizzlies team. That Grizzlies team does play decent defense, especially at defending points in the paint. So I do worry that maybe Wagner, I would feel better if he took more threes. He does take a couple. So he's going to have to earn these points. But I do think this line versus volume and usage is just too low overall that I would be happily leaning the over.
Yeah, the 13.5 just feels low. Like you were saying, 33 minutes a night, 19.9 points per game for Wagner. That's right where we've got him projected. And then just looking at the game log, not to be too game log chasey about it, but just going back over time, he's only missed this 13.5 line twice since the start of December. One of those nights, he only played 22 minutes. So there's a clear expectation of him getting well north of this line. It feels a little bit stronger to me, just, in the non-math brain, feels a little bit stronger than 84.2%, but I still love it at that mark. So another one of the 3 strong overs that I like on the board there. We've also got some unders that we can talk about on the board, a little bit less fun always, but Walker Kessler leading the way on the unders board, and actually the strongest overall pick that we've got today at 97.2% to go under a 22.5 on his PRA. What are you seeing there for Walker Kessler, and is there any pushback on that projection?
No, that's a big line for what he's been using. The pushback would be that it's the Houston Rockets, and that matchup is just so soft. I would lean the under based on what we got, but I certainly could see some trouble. Like, this is one of those situations where if I had to put a confidence level, it's not the same as the 90+% here.
Okay.
I think I would still lean the under, but it would probably be around the bottom of my list of warm and fuzzies to rotate through and through. Utah.
Okay, so we're knocking it down a little ways. On the average, I'm looking at the numbers, 18.8 minutes per game, putting up a 13.9. But when we know that he's, can be a productive guy when he's out there and sees an uptick in minutes, at least in like a DFS sense. So do we have an expectation of more minutes today? He's projected at 24 versus his 18 that he usually gets. So it looks like we're giving him a handful more minutes and a projection of around 15 on the PRA. Is it that's making you kind of, not so comfortable? Just the idea, a little bit more time on the court, a little bit more to do.
I'm trying to see why he got 30 minutes 2 games ago, because he came off the bench that game. I think it is directly correlated with Jared Vanderbilt, who did not come back on the floor in the fourth quarter. In that game, 3 fouls, 17 minutes. So maybe he got injured. But Vanderbilt is somebody that we've seen get in foul trouble before. So I would say at normal expectations, like if Jared Vanderbilt is going to play the usual game, I would assume that his minutes are going to be closer to 20 than 30. But just because of how volatile this rotation has been really all year, but especially lately with Vanderbilt, Kelly Olynyk, and Kessler, I feel like Kessler's the next man up to fill in for one of those front court guys. So that's where the concern is. But the probability would be that he doesn't get 30 minutes. So I would be in agreement with the projection. I'm just not as confident as the confidence number.
That makes sense. And looking at the number, I did say an uptick in minutes, but the 23.9 we've got him projected for is right about what he's averaged over the last 5. Is it 23.7 over the last 5, 17 the last time out. But then, like you mentioned, 2 games back, played 30 the game before that, 24, and then 20 and 21 in games 4 and 5 going backwards. So there is a reasonable expectation for around 24 minutes, and we still do like him to go under. So I'm with you. It feels a little bit less comfy than the 97%, but it would still be playable on the card, maybe knock it down a little bit. What about the next one down the board? Mike Conley on the rebounds, 4.5 on the line. We've got him projected for like half that.
Yeah. Again, all of the concern here would just be the fact that it's the Houston Rockets and
wide open type game.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But yes, I would expect that everyone else on the court is more likely to dig into those rebounds than Conley. And then with Colin Sexton still out, Conley probably still has a really safe floor in minutes. But yeah, I would lean the under at 4.5. Easily, just about any game that you put Conley in, just because that's not really his role. He's out there averaging less than half of that number. So you have to lean the under.
Yeah, it makes total sense to lean the under. In per 36 cents, 2.7 rebounds a game in real time, 29.3 minutes a game, 2.2 rebounds a game, a 3.8% rebounding percentage for Mike Conley. Just like you said, just not his role, not really what he does. So that seems like a meaty one to chase in the under on the rebounds there, but you do have that wide open game format like we're concerned about. Let's knock out one more before we do the read here. Let's get away from this Utah-Houston game. What about Boston and Dallas? Spencer Dinwiddie, guy who does see upticks in, various opportunities, good player overall, but it looks like they're giving him a lot to do today on the PRA, 30.5. We've got him projected to go, well over 20, but still not approach that 30.5 line in his about 2 more minutes than his season long average, but 2 fewer minutes than what he's averaged over the last 5. What are we thinking for Spencer Dinwiddie here? And his rebounding one is also right below this one in terms of probability, if you like just the rebounds, the bare rebounds.
Yeah, usually Dinwiddie's games or his big usable games for fantasy coincided with him getting hot from downtown or something like that. But generally speaking, this Mavs team has been Luka Doncic, some Christian Wood, and spin the wheel, make a deal between Dinwiddie, Reggie Bullock, and Tim Hardaway. The Celtics are coming off probably the most embarrassing loss in their franchise's history. So I expect him to get right, and then also expect this game pace to be one of the slowest paced games on the slate, probably the slowest paced game on the slate, knowing Dallas and Cleveland's not playing, right? So so everything's a net negative for overs, and Dinwiddie's a net negative for overs just in and of himself. So yeah, I would probably I would agree with the confidence here. I would be on the under pretty hard for Dinwiddie as long as Luke is in.
Yeah, unless we get some weird news like that, obviously that's going to change the entire spectrum. And that's important to note. It's the way that these NHA lines are presented in the versus the field contest. They work kind of like salaries, where there's going to be these big 90%ers. Those are like your cheap value plays. And then you got to get into the nitty gritty with some of these 60 and 70 type percent ones. When you fill out the rest of your card, those are your mid-range plays, your high price plays, etc. So when you have some news, these things don't change. These lines don't change in the versus the field contest. So that can create value. It's just the same way that news works in NBA DFS at the other sites, where the news creates an opportunity for an underpriced guy. In this situation, it would be for a guy whose line is misaligned now to the expectation of production. So definitely something to keep an eye on throughout the day, but I like that one a lot unless something changes there for Dinwiddie. Let's talk about NHA real quick, since we were just kind of doing that anyway. They've got the versus the field contest that I was just talking about. You can also play against the house. You win up to 20 times your entry fee by beating the house in a 5-card parlay. So all you got to do is make 5 different picks from these over-unders across individual player matchups across every different sports league, football, if it ever comes back, the NBA, college football, all sorts of different sports on the board here for NHA. You make these picks, you string them together, you rank them out on the confidence card, you put a bunch of entries against the field, or you can play against the house, like I was saying, with win up to 20 times your entry fee there. Against the field, you win up to $20,000 if you bink the contest. A lot of chops and a lot of different ways that you need to differentiate your card and think about game theory that go into it at the top of the board. But we provide free projections and free lineup builds for you to get there at Stokastic. You also get a $100 deposit match bonus if you follow our links from Stokastic here. There's overlay on every single contest over at No House. Just a lot of really, really good reasons to go check out No House Advantage today. So make sure you're taking that opportunity. You can check out our lineup generator. You can check out our free projections, and you can get a $100 deposit match bonus with No House Advantage. Let's take a look at some more of these picks. Let's go down the board a little bit here. I'm going to flip back to the overs. We'll go down into some of these 70%er range. See if we can find some interesting ones. What about Jayson Tatum? 75% on the overs on his raw points. The line's at 26.5 in that same Boston-Dallas game. You were saying that, potentially the slowest game on the slate contributes toward the unders. What do you think of Tatum going over 26.5 real life points here?
Oh man. Yeah. Betting unders on Tatum and Jaylen Brown have been pretty frustrating all year. So this is probably a candidate for on a 4-game slate. We're probably going to run multiple cards. This is probably one of those candidates to go either which way. One thing I would say is that even though both these teams project slow, and the Mavericks, their defense is really not as stout in the absence of Dorian Finney-Smith and Maxi Kleber. I actually ran a research in this the other day. They lose about 4 points of defensive efficiency with those guys off individually. So
that's
it is
significant.
No, yeah, it's a pretty big step backward. So it's not like the matchup itself is worse for Dallas. It's just, or excuse me, worse for the Celtics. It's just that the pace is expected to be lower. Luke is the slowest basketball player in the league when you clock him. So I would still expect the uses to be ridiculously high for Tatum, probably leads the team in shot volume. And because of that, living up to like a 115 total here, I'd probably still lean the over, but it becomes a lot less confident because of the pace concerns that we would have here.
Yeah, that 26.5, our projection is 31.7. It's Jayson Tatum, right? He's one of the best scorers in the league. He's averaging 30.8 per game in a per 36. And I mean, that's essentially his per 36 because he plays 36.7 minutes a night. We've got him projected for more minutes, 39 minutes projection tonight. So, I mean, projection-wise, numbers-wise, it does make sense that the over is going to fall in around the 75%, but it does feel a little bit more fragile than that in a slower matchup. So it's always fun just talking about how slow Luka plays the game. And just watching him is amazing, and what he does on the court is amazing. But I love flipping on like the NBA streams. I love flipping between watching him and watching John Morant play, because John Morant's always playing like 15% faster than everybody else on the court, it seems like, for better or for worse, because sometimes he's just wildly out of control, it seems like, but he's amazing as well. And then Luka plays like 15% slower than everybody. And it's just the things that the two of them do in totally different ways. I just love going back and forth between those two. I was doing that the other night, so it's just an enjoyable way to watch.
It's funny you say, did you see the John Morant clip last night where it was a smooth blowout, so the Hornets were just like giving up? John Morant inbounded the ball. They don't start the play clock until he touches it. He ate about 20 seconds of clock before Terry Rozier came across the backcourt to challenge him. It
to
was
actually challenge it.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Love shit like that. They're going to be an interesting team. I was just watching them, play the game. I like their pieces. I think that, they're probably not going to get all the way there, but I think they're going to be a tough out in the playoffs. I think they're going to be a really interesting team. It's going to be fun to watch. Let's get back to the board here. What about going back to, let's go somewhere else. Let's look at Jamal Murray on the assists, 4.5 on the assists line. That's another one. It's in the mid 70s. Whoops. I shouldn't have clicked that because my lights went out when I clicked that. It's in the mid 70s on the board here, percentage wise. What do you think of Jamal Murray on the assists line in a game we haven't touched on yet?
Yeah, I mean, 4.5 is pretty low for a Denver team that projects pretty healthy. Aaron Gordon's arguably having his best season of his career. Michael Porter Jr. is active, and then Jokic can convert as well. Matchup gets a little softer if we keep going with the hunch that Paul George is down, one of their better lankier defenders. So, yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense to be on the over here. I agree with, the confidence not being 80, 90%er, but this guy on the season averaging 5.6 assists per game, and all of his converters, all of his shooters are there. So yeah, I would be there on the over.
Yeah, generally it's, as long as everybody's on the court with a nice producer like this, I'm always happy to take those assist lines when they look right. 23.9% assist rate on the season, 5.6, like you said, in the just average column. Looks like he missed it on January 2nd. He only put up 4, but going back before that, he's over at a comfortable number of times in a row. So definitely, again, not to get too box scorey chasey about it, but it does look like there's plenty of support for the notion that we're going to be well clear of that line. How about staying in that same game and the same type of prop on the assist line? Nikola Jokic, his big buddy in the middle, 8.5 assists. We've got that one a little bit thinner, but still projected to go over. What do you think on that one? And do those two negatively correlate?
I mean, in a roundabout way, yeah, they negatively correlate just because they're both assist props and they're both eating into probably the same possessions. Obviously, there'll be some possessions where one's on the court, one's not.
Does the NBA need to start tracking hockey assists? The secondary assists?
The secondary assists.
I think they do.
I mean, I tell you what, some of these assists they give are handoffs and then 5 dribbles. I'm like, that's not really.
Yeah, those are always fun. Yeah. Guy takes it up at the top of the circle and brings it like all the way around. Jump up from the baseline. They're like, yeah, assist to that guy back over there 7 seconds ago.
When Murray's on the court with Jokic still has a 40% assist rate. Murray goes down to about 24%. So Jokic doesn't lose much because Murray's still a shooter that can convert for Jokic. When Murray's on the court without Jokic, Murray gets up to almost a 30% assist rate. So while those two overs are probably negatively correlated on the same ticket, but I do think in the grand scheme of a full game, there's probably enough mismatch minutes that I wouldn't sweat it too much on a 4-game slate. But to answer your question, yeah, Jokic is another guy I lean the over because he's got just as many shooters as Jamal Murray does here.
Yep. And just a spectacular facilitator of basketball. Just another player too that you just love to watch. Doesn't operate at the highest speeds either, but just knows exactly where he wants to go every possession. And these guys do this, I'm going to do that. And he's just absolutely fantastic. Looking back towards some of these unders, here's a weird one from that LA Denver game. What about KCP? His PRA is at 18.5 today. What do we think on that one? Looks a little thin.
Yeah, I wholly avoid KCP everything all year. I literally don't think I've rostered him once in DFS.
Oh, really? I get way too much of him when he's projected for a normal amount of minutes. It's weird. He's always cheap. But yeah, I never like seeing him come up because I don't know that I've ever actually won with him. Let's put it that way.
It looks like he's averaging about 17-ish PRA a game. So the line gives us a 1 above his average, and the lazy research here is: do we expect an above average performance against the LA Clippers? I probably don't. And with this, we mentioned this team fully healthy. KCP is the 5th option. Yeah. So I don't expect him to contribute too much due to the points. He might be a little bit more of a defender and scrappy hustle stat guy and steals and blocks, which will not impact our PRA here. So yeah, I would lean the under. But yeah, he's just one of those guys I never really attack one way or the other.
Yeah, and not a big producer in terms of rebounds and assists, so you're going to need him to get there on the points most likely if he does get there. And I feel like there's enough room on that one. It's a 78%er on our board, but I agree with you. I feel like KCP is just going to burn me regardless of which direction I go. So maybe we'll leave that one alone. Any that are really standing out to you that you want to call out for the folks? And we got 3-4 minutes left here.
No, I just think
I can just throw some more at you if you want.
Yeah, a lot of focus for me would be on the Utah and Houston game. That game is two of my favorite environments for DFS to pick on, and I expect the same for real life. We mentioned Michael Porter. We mentioned Mike Conley benefits in the absence of Colin Sexton. Well, so does Jordan Clarkson, who's putting in about 35 minutes of a night. So you get that type of opportunity against a team like the Rockets. I'd be interested in looking his way. I probably want to lean either points, or I guess we don't get points. We only get assists for Clarkson. Or no, that's on the first page.
See. I got him. What about his 3-pointers? 2.5.
Yeah.
It's kind of tight on our percentages, but do you like that one? Looks like our highest over for him.
Yeah, so I mentioned him and Markkanen are probably the guys that I expect to chuck the most three. Olynyk could chuck threes too, and the Rockets allow the most threes attempts and most threes made. So that would probably be one that I sniff out and try to get some action on, and maybe try to correlate that with the a Conley assist or something like that. Okay,
and then while you were talking about that one, I located his points. It's like dead on balls accurate. 22.5 is the line. Our projection 22.65 real life points. Dead at we're talking about a coin flip of coin flips. 49-1, 50.9. What do we think?
Yeah, that's about what he's put up in the last 6 games. Dead center of all that. And there's been some similar matchups in terms of quality: Sacramento, Golden State, San Antonio. So I think with that one, it's closer to a coin flip, and I wouldn't want to get too keen, but in the interest of fun, I'd be on the over side of the coin flip just because it's the Rockets.
Yeah, and in the interest of fun is always a good tiebreaker for this sort of thing. What about sticking in that game then, since we like the environment here? Malik Beasley, one of the higher overs from this one, 73.2 on the Eitan Chandler Memorial 3-pointers prop, sitting at 2.5 on the line. We've got him projected to go over.
Yeah, I actually do like that one. Beasley comes off the bench. When he comes off the bench, he leads the second unit in usage, and he'll chuck 11, 8, 7, 8, 9 3-point attempts in his last 4 or 5 games. And just like everyone else, he benefits from a matchup that schemes well for opposing 3-point shooters. It's just the efficiency of that volume becomes a concern. In 2 or 3 of those last 5 games, hitting 2 or less. So the shot volume will be there, but
he's a shooter.
He's a shooter. Shooter's gonna shoot.
That's right. 3.2 makes a game. 8.6 takes. 37.4% on the season. But yeah, not one of the more reliable guys. Again, that doesn't necessarily give you the warm and fuzzies every time you put him in a lineup. That's going to bring us around toward the end of the show here, gang. Make sure that you're hitting the site. We've got the free projections up on the site for No House. We've got free lineup builds too. We can't talk about it enough. You can grab the top optimal lineups based on these projections, these win rates that we're talking about on the show. Take them off the site, plug them directly into your contests. You can also skip back a couple pages, make sure that you're not exactly duplicating these same lineups that everybody who's doing that puts in, and you're only losing a smidge of probability by doing that, because you're still taking very high probabilities. You're just putting maybe in a different order. Maybe you're working one differentiated pick in as you go back. So strong probabilities there. It's a great way to approach it. We've got a $100 deposit match bonus with our pals at No House Advantage. They're putting overlay into all these contests for you guys to induce you to go over there. There's just every reason in the world to go make money at No House Advantage. So go check it out. That's about it. My name's Terry. This was the No House Advantage Strategy Show. That's Gundacker. Gun, tell the people where to find you.
Twitter, YouTube /Gundacker.
There we go, folks. Good luck out there tonight. Stick around. We've got later on today a couple of shows coming up. I forgot to pull the schedule up here, but it looks like the usual routine. NBA Deeper Dive starting at 5 o'clock. That's going to be with Ryan and Adam. And then 6 o'clock to 7:30, the extended version of the NBA Live Before Lock with Greg and Eric. So make sure you're sticking around for those. Give us thumbs up. Give all those shows thumbs up too. We'll see you later, gang. Good luck. Took me a minute to get out of there.